My name's Jordan. I'm 31, and I always thought that if you gave enough, stayed quiet enough, and didn't rock the boat, your family would come around eventually. I've spent most of my life operating under that belief that if I just kept helping, kept supporting, eventually they'd see me. Not as the weird one, not as the black sheep, but just as a brother, a son, a person worthy of a seat at the table. But when my younger brother, Mason, got married last month, I got a lesson I won't forget. It wasn't loud. There wasn't some blowout fight or screaming match. It was just silence. The kind of silence that says everything. The first time I realized something was off was when my cousin Jenna texted me a photo of her wedding outfit. I didn't know what wedding she was referring to, so I just asked, "Whose wedding?" She replied with a laughing emoji and said, "Mason's, duh." This Saturday. I stared at the message for a full minute before it sank in. My brother, my only sibling, was getting married in 5 days. I hadn't received a text, a call, not even one of those generic EVs people send out to pad the guest list. I thought maybe it had gotten lost, so I called Mom. She answered on the second ring with her usual, sugar-coated tone. "Hey honey, how are you?" I didn't even say hi. I just asked, "Am I invited to Mason's wedding?" There was a pause. A long, loaded pause. Then she said, "We didn't think you'd want to come. You always seem uncomfortable at family things." I didn't say anything. I was trying to swallow this new reality like it wasn't a burning piece of coal. She went on, like she was doing me a favor. "Plus, Mason's new in-laws are very traditional. It's just, we thought it would be easier this way. No drama. No awkwardness." That was the moment. The moment I stopped hoping. Not even out of rage, just clarity. I hung up. Didn't say a word. Just tapped end call and sat back on my couch, staring at nothing for a good 10 minutes. And I thought about all the times I'd helped. The times I'd shown up. When Mason's startup failed, and he almost lost his house, guess who stepped in with a silent loan that was never paid back? I didn't make a fuss. I never do. $1,000 a month, every month, for the past year. A temporary agreement. 12 grand annually, quietly funneled into my parents' joint account so they could help Mason until he got back on his feet. I never asked for credit. I didn't even want it. But being completely erased? That's something else. The day of the wedding, I stayed home. I didn't stalk Instagram or scroll through Facebook to see pictures. I didn't need to. I imagined the smiles, the champagne, the speeches. I imagined the part where my name was never mentioned, where my chair was never empty because it was never even set. And then I opened my banking app. The monthly auto transfer was scheduled for the 5th. I stared at it, finger hovering. Then I canceled it. That was it. Not out of spite, not initially. I just realized I didn't owe them anymore. I wasn't family in their eyes. Just a sponsor. An invisible donor. 3 days passed. Nothing. Then this morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. 8 missed calls from Mom. 9 from Mason. 2 from Dad, which, let me tell you, is a record. Then 1 voicemail from Mason. I haven't listened to it yet. I already know what it's about. I know the second the mortgage auto draft failed, their bank started lighting up like a Christmas tree. I know Mason's probably fuming, confused, maybe even scared. But I haven't called back. I don't even feel guilty. And that's the strangest part. All my life, I was the one who made sure everyone else stayed afloat. I covered gaps, paid off surprise bills, even helped pay for Jenna's first semester of college when her FAFSA fell through, again, in silence. Never wanted to rub it in. But now I wonder maybe I should have. Maybe my silence was the reason they thought they could treat me like this. Like background noise. And part of me, the part that's still raw, still hurting, is starting to think this might be the beginning of something different. Something I should have done a long time ago. Because now Mason's calling again. And I still haven't picked up. The voicemail sat on my screen like a ticking bomb I had no desire to defuse. I didn't even press play. I just stared at the little red icon like it was taunting me. 10 seconds later, another call came in, this time from Mom. I muted it and flipped my phone over on the kitchen counter. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was thick, charged. Like the moment before a thunderstorm finally breaks open. I poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to stay grounded. But my mind kept drifting back, not just to the wedding, but to everything leading up to it. Every family event where I was the afterthought. Every phone call where I was only contacted because someone needed something. When I got my degree in finance and landed my first real job, no one threw a dinner or even acknowledged it. Mason, on the other hand, got a full-blown catered party when he got his first unpaid internship. And I showed up. With a gift. That had been the rhythm for years. I gave, they took. I stayed quiet. They pretended I didn't exist. The only time they remembered me was when they needed someone to cover rent or co-sign something. I used to convince myself that meant I mattered, that I was trusted. But now, I finally saw it for what it was: convenience. Around 2 p.m., I finally opened the voicemail. Mason sounded stressed, not angry, but desperate. "Hey, Jordan, listen, I don't know what happened with the account this month. The payment bounced, and the bank's been calling all morning. Can you call me back? Please? It's just bad timing with the wedding and everything." A pause. "We really need you right now." We. That word clanged around in my head like a bell made of steel. We need you. There was no we when they left me off the guest list. No we when Mom said I wouldn't fit in with his new family. Suddenly now, there's a we. I sat with that for a while. Then the group chat bust. The family one, which I had long muted but never left. Mason had sent a message. "Does anyone know what's going on with Jordan?" Mom said he's not answering. Then Dad chimed in. "Maybe if you hadn't made him feel like an outsider at your own wedding, he'd be answering." My eyes widened. That was new. Dad never took my side. Not once in 31 years. I scrolled up, making sure it was actually his number and not a weird typo from someone else. But it was him. My father. The man who once said, when I asked why Mason got all the attention, "Some people just shine brighter, Jordan. That's not a bad thing." And now he was calling them out? The group chat went dead for about 5 minutes. Then Mom responded with, "That's not fair. We didn't want tension at the wedding. Jordan's always made things complicated." I laughed. Out loud. A dry, humorless sound that echoed around my apartment. I hadn't made things complicated. I just hadn't fit neatly into the little role they'd carved out for me. The quiet, helpful, socially awkward brother who didn't make waves. I was supposed to stay in my corner, hand over money when asked, and not expect a seat at the table. Literally. Then Mason messaged me directly. Not in the group chat. Just a single, private text. "Jordan, please. Can we talk? I'm sorry. Sorry." That word hit different. I couldn't remember the last time Mason apologized to me. Not when he borrowed my car in college and returned it with a busted headlight. Not when he told a group of our relatives that I just wasn't the relationship type, which was his way of outing me as single at every holiday dinner, like I was defective. I stared at the message. And then I did something I hadn't done before. I replied, "Sure, but not until I know the truth." He answered almost immediately. "What truth?" So I told him. Why wasn't I invited? Really? Not Mom's excuse. Not sugar-coated. I want the actual reason. And if I get anything less than the full truth, we're done. This time the silence on the other end stretched longer. 10 minutes. 15. I left my phone on the table and went to clean up the kitchen just to stay busy, but I kept glancing over. Then the bubbles appeared. Typing. Then stopped. Then typing again. Finally, a wall of text came in. He started with, "Okay, I'll be honest." He said that his fiancée, now wife, came from a very image-focused family. They were all professionals, lawyers, bankers, upper-crust types. They didn't like that Mason had a brother who worked freelance, didn't own a home, and wasn't married with kids yet. Apparently, they'd Googled me, dug into my LinkedIn, even found an old video of me giving a TED-style talk on minimalist living, which they thought was odd. "They thought you'd make the family look weird," he wrote. "Especially at the reception. Her dad even said you gave off offbeat vibes." Mom agreed. Said it wasn't worth the risk. And just like that, there it was. I wasn't invited to my brother's wedding because his in-laws thought I didn't match their aesthetic. Because I was offbeat. Because I might ruin the curated perfection they wanted to display that day. And instead of defending me, instead of saying, "He's my brother," Mason folded. My parents agreed. And they cut me out like I was a misprint in the family photo. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I didn't. I just felt hollow. Like something that had been holding me together had finally crumbled. But all I felt was relief. And then I picked up the phone. I didn't call. I started typing. And what I wrote is what changed everything. I took a deep breath and stared at the blinking cursor for a while, letting the weight of everything he'd said settle in my chest. Then I began typing, not to yell or curse, not to guilt trip or manipulate, just to tell the truth. My truth. The kind I never got the chance to say out loud, because I was always too busy keeping the peace. "I appreciate your honesty," I wrote, "but I want you to really think about what you just said. You let your in-laws dictate whether your own brother could attend the most important day of your life. You didn't defend me. You didn't even give me a heads up. You just let me find out through Jenna like I was some distant family friend you forgot to unfriend on Facebook. I paused. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the next part came naturally. Do you know what it's like to keep giving and still be treated like an outsider? To sit alone at home while your family's all dressed up, smiling for pictures, clinking glasses, and pretending I don't exist? I wasn't asking for much. Just a seat. A little space at the table. That's all. And you couldn't even give me that. The message ballooned as I kept typing, word after word pouring out like water finally breaking through a dam. You say you need my help now. That it's bad timing because of the wedding and the mortgage. But it's not bad timing. It's just the first time you felt what it's like to not have me covering for you. I was your safety net. You just didn't realize it until I cut the ropes. I stared at the last line and deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, it was, but because I didn't want this to be about punishment. I wanted it to be about recognition. So instead, I wrote, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because I finally realized I was the only one showing up. And I'm done being the family's ghost donor. You don't have to like who I am, but if you want me in your life again, it starts with respect, not desperation. Not a last-minute apology when the bills come due. Real, honest respect. I had sinned, and for the first time in years, I felt light. Like I'd finally stopped dragging around something I was never meant to carry. He didn't reply right away, but I saw the receipt almost instantly. He saw it. He read it. I knew that much. An hour passed. Then two. By the third hour, my phone rang again. It was Dad. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready for whatever version of family damage control he was going to attempt. But then I saw the voicemail pop up. Curiosity got the better of me, so I listened. His voice was slower than usual, like he'd just finished a long conversation he didn't win. Jordan, it's your dad. Look, your mother and I talked, and maybe we got too caught up in Mason's big day. That doesn't excuse it, I know. I guess we never realized how much you've done. We didn't see it because we were always too busy looking past you. And now that you're gone, we're starting to feel it. There was a pause, the kind of pause that usually came before a lecture. But not this time. We want to make it right. We don't expect you to forgive us overnight. But if you're willing to talk, we're here. Click. I sat down on my couch, heart pounding, unsure of what I was supposed to feel. Relief? Bitterness? It was all tangled together. But what stood out most was this. For the first time in my life, I hadn't begged for their attention. I hadn't sent long texts explaining myself, or cracked jokes to smooth things over, or volunteered to pick up the pieces. I had simply stepped away. And now, the silence wasn't mine. It was theirs. I didn't respond that night. Not because I was trying to punish them, but because I finally understood that I had the right to choose when and how I engaged. That my time, my energy, and my presence were not just defaults they could assume would always be there. They had to be earned, like anyone else's. The next day, Mason texted again. Can we meet? I looked at the screen. I thought about everything. The childhood where I was always second. The teenage years where I was laughed off for not being cool, like Mason. The college years where I bailed him out, financially, emotionally, more times than I could count. And now this. And I knew. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about the first time I was forcing them all to really see me. I picked up my phone, opened our chat, and slowly typed 4 words. Let me think about it. Then I turned off my phone, walked out the door, and took the longest, calmest walk of my life. Because something had shifted, and this time, it wasn't me chasing them. It was them finally noticing what it feels like when I'm gone. I didn't reply to Mason's text for 2 days. Not because I wanted to punish him. I was long past that point. But because I finally understood something I'd spent my whole life ignoring. I didn't owe anyone my immediate forgiveness just because we shared a last name. Letting people back in required more than, we didn't mean it like that. It required accountability. It required change. And I wasn't sure if Mason or my parents were ready for either. But after 2 days of silence, I decided to meet him. Not at Mom and Dad's house. Not at the family restaurant where they might corner me mid-bite and try to talk over everything. I picked a quiet cafe on the east side. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere I could leave, guilt-free, if things went south. He arrived late. Typical. Mason walked in looking rough, underdressed, underslept, and far less sure of himself than I'd ever seen him. No smirk. No swagger. Just a guy who finally realized the bridge might actually be burned this time. Hey, he said. sliding into the chair across from me. I nodded. Hey. We sat in silence for a while. He looked like he wanted to talk but didn't know where to start. I didn't plan on helping him. Finally, he cleared his throat. I just want to say I'm sorry. For the wedding. For how it all went down. I sipped my coffee. You'll have to be more specific. He rubbed the back of his neck, then looked down. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't invite you. I should have fought harder. I should have told Haley's parents to shove it when they made those comments about you. I shouldn't have let Mom convince me that it was for the best. I raised an eyebrow. So it was her idea then? He hesitated. Mostly. She thought it'd be too messy. That you might say something weird at the reception. Or that people would ask questions about your, lifestyle. There it was. I laughed once, short and cold. You mean my single status? My apartment instead of a house? Or the fact that I don't show up with a matching spouse and 3 kids like it's a family catalog? He winced. Yeah, I didn't feel that way, but Mom made it seem like you needed to curate your wedding to look perfect on Instagram, I said. And I didn't fit the brand. He didn't respond. Instead, he looked me in the eye and said, I was a coward. I didn't want to lose their approval, so I went along with it. And I let you take the hit. That landed harder than I expected. Because for once, he wasn't hiding behind excuses. He wasn't trying to justify it. He was just owning it. I nodded slowly. That's more honest than I expected. He leaned forward. Jordan, you have every right to hate me, but I'm asking for a chance to fix it. How? He paused, like he hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. Start by making things right. I'll pay back what you gave us for the mortgage. Every cent. I shook my head. I don't want your money. He blinked. Then what do you want? I sat back. I want to stop being the invisible sibling. I want a family that doesn't just use me. I want Mom and Dad to stop pretending I'm the weird extra that got attached to the real package, you. And I want you to actually be a brother. Not just when you need help, but when it's inconvenient. When it costs you something. He went quiet again. I didn't fill the silence. Finally, he said, I'll talk to them. I'm not asking you to, I said. This isn't about fixing them anymore. This is about you. Either you want me in your life as an equal, or you don't. He looked down at his hands. I do. I really do. I finished my coffee. Then prove it. And not in one big dramatic gesture. I'm done falling for those. Prove it by showing up. Every time. He nodded. Okay. We walked out of the cafe and parted ways without a hug. It wasn't that kind of moment, but it was something. A start. Maybe. The next morning, I got a call from Dad. I debated answering, but curiosity won. Jordan, he said, his voice unusually gentle. Your mother and I talked. Mason filled us in. And we've been selfish. We leaned on you because you made things easy. And I think part of us resented that you never needed the kind of help Mason did. So we just stopped seeing you. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd probably ever get from him. I'm not asking to be the golden child, I said. I just wanted to be seen. I know, he replied. And you should have been. There was a long pause. Then, almost reluctantly, he added, your mother wants to apologize too. She's not great at this stuff. She's had 31 years to get good at it, I said. He let out a breath. You're not wrong. A few days later, I got a formal invitation in the mail. Not to a wedding, that ship had sailed, but to a family dinner. At a nice restaurant. My name printed on the envelope. No group text. No last-minute call. Just a quiet acknowledgement that I existed. I didn't RSVP right away. I let it sit on my counter for a week. And then, eventually, I went. And it was awkward. Mom tried too hard. Dad avoided eye contact half the night. Mason hovered like a middle schooler trying to get picked for a dodgeball team. But they were trying. Clumsily. Late. Imperfectly. And for the first time, I had the power to decide how the evening would go. So I set the tone. I talked. I laughed when I felt like it. I passed on the parts one didn't want to share. When Mom made a backhanded comment about my solo lifestyle, I raised an eyebrow and said, I'm the only one here without debt. Maybe weird works. Even Dad chuckled at that. When the check came, Mason reached for it, and I didn't stop him. It felt good. Not because I needed the free dinner, I didn't, but because for once, they wanted to give, not just take. That night, I walked out of the restaurant with a feeling I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't victory. It wasn't closure. It was peace. A quiet, earned kind of peace. They'd never be the family I imagined as a kid, but maybe they could become the kind I could tolerate as an adult, one boundary at a time. And as for the mortgage, I never resumed the payments. Mason eventually refinanced, got his finances in order, and stopped living like someone else would clean up his mess. We're not best friends now, but we talk. And sometimes that's enough. Because now they all know, if I'm not at the table, it's not because I wasn't invited. It's because I chose not to sit down. And that, to me, is what real power feels like.